Welcome to Sabbath Cafe Podcast. You're listening to episode 115. In the last episode, I shared on how I enjoyed having the freedom to just be me in my spiritual journey. In this session, I'll continue with finding the freedom to explore. And also I was able to explore the things that I've always been curious about. But the people that I was with may or may not be interested in. I really am very curious about prayer. And I write about that, talk about that here on the blog. But I'm just very curious about human beings having interaction with the divine, with the spiritual. That just always fascinates me. And so I started to explore a lot of things. I started to read books on that. And I also love this idea of Sabbath. And that's why the blog is named Sabbath Cafe. And this idea of rest, and why is that a command for us? What is it all about? I was very curious about that. That's also not a very popular topic for most people. And so I started to read about it. I explored. I looked up scripture verses on it. I talked to God about it. God would show me different books and resources on it. So I stumbled upon the verse in Hebrews. It says, "Make every effort to enter the rest." I was like, what? Strive to enter the rest. It's kind of like an irony. But yeah, that's exactly what the verse says. He's not saying strive to work more, and we know that because Christianity is not a work-based faith. So what is it? And this is something where scripture tells us, be purposeful and be intentional to enter into that place of rest. And that just, wow, for some reason that verse just stayed with me. And because this is a personal walk with God, it's just between me and God. So I have the freedom to sit on that verse and to meditate on this idea. And what does it mean? And since I get to say what my journey looks like, so I decided I was going to put that verse into practice. And so for a season, I purposely practiced Sabbath rest, and not just the actual event like Sabbath, this is what you do, this is what you don't do. It's not just that, but also the idea of rest. And I happened to run into some teaching that focuses on why rest is powerful and how rest can deepen your intercession and your prayer time. And I was like, wow, that's my thing. And so that opened up a whole new season for me. And from that season, I wrote, I have more understanding about pruning and transitions. And so that was a big turning point in my spiritual life. And so just kind of looking back in my own walk with God, I was kind of looking back and I was like, wow, now I love the freedom I get in my own personal walk. It's like, I don't really want to share this. I don't really want to go back to community-based spirituality anymore. Now, when I still have connection with friends, I still talk with friends, but that's more, we come together and we celebrate and we exchange what we learn about God. But my journey with God is not dependent on the people outside of me anymore. So my journey with God, really, I know it's just about me and Him. And it's inspiring and it's so refreshing to be able to have the freedom to journey with God, to be with God, to connect with God, however, whenever, in whatever ways I want. And it just seems that God is always right there with me. He doesn't cap you. In my spiritual life, in my spiritual journey, often, in the groups of people I'm with, I often felt like I'm capped because they don't want to go where I'm going. And I'm sure you feel that way too, because every single one of us were created uniquely. Your friends were guaranteed not always want to do what you want to do, or not always want to learn what you want to learn, because they're not you. And you have your timing and they have theirs. So it's almost guaranteed that there's a part of you that can only be explored when you have your individual walk with God, when you embrace that solitude with God. Then God can take you places. Then God can go as high and as deep, as fast as you want, or as slow as you want, in areas you want to explore. And that's the end of part 2. I hope that encouraged you about starting your own adventure with God. We will finish this series in the next podcast. Thank you for listening, and have a great week.